Making compromises for the European good is meant to be part of the European ideal. But France is actually the least European country of all. That France was the country to pull the pin of the negotiating grenade, just as they were about to pass the finish line, does not come as a surprise to any eurosceptic. No other EU member would so openly promote its own domestic self-interests, at the cost to other EU members. Possibly the reason the Frenchman, Michel Barnier, was appointed chief negotiator in round 2 of the talks. But Germany and Ireland will be the big losers, and one can only sense further disruption to EU harmony from Macron's latest move. Just like that warmongering dictator Napoleon, who invaded and conquered most of Europe, Macron will be remembered as a national hero by his supporters. The common ground amongst the French is their hatred for the British and the values we deliver. The UK and other EU countries long wanted to reform the disastrous common agricultural policy, but the French always wielded the veto, because this policy is designed to act in the interests of small French farmers. Likewise, France always resisted demands to significantly reform the common fisheries policy. Also, the wasteful dysfunctionality of having the European Parliament sit 1 week a month in the French city of Strasbourg is opposed by almost all other EU nations, but again France uses its veto. France has always resisted any moves to make a more flexible EU, partly because the more centralized the EU becomes, the more power it gives to French politicians. The insistence on a rigid EU is one of the main forces that ended with the UK deciding on Brexit. That attitude of French politicians, in assuming that the French interest and the European interest are the same, is why it is no surprise that it is France, rather than any other country, that has attempted to blow up the talks. But it's not just Brexit where failures and infighting present themselves. The European project faces serious trouble. Implementation of the €1.1 trillion, 7-year EU budget and €750 billion COVID recovery fund, shows just how much this union cares about their citizens. Viktor Orban, Hungary's right-wing populist leader, and Mateusz Morawiecki, Poland's prime minister, jointly declared last week they would veto the budget if it retained rule of law criteria, requiring adherence to EU-defined standards of judicial independence. The fact that the argument is blocking timely pandemic relief shames the EU. If it cannot unite to fight this unprecedented human emergency, voters will ask, then what can it do? Even the German Chancellor, Angela Merkel, who holds the EU presidency, is flailing as the French and others insist they will not bow to authoritarian diktats. Control over lives. But, in reality, this could be the best deal for the UK. A deal that allows us to withhold the £39 billion payment, agreed under the withdrawal agreement. A deal in which we simply rip up this agreement that holds so many carefully prescribed EU controls. A deal in which there is no deal, and no compromise. For once, there can be no more extensions. No more talks under the same umbrella, and best of all, no more Barnier. This deal will never get ratified, all the time Macron is around. And never if Boris was to fold and give in. There are just too many Tories who understand that their presence would no longer be required, if their manifesto was not adhered to. So, let the French eat their frogs and snails, instead of our fish. Let the Germans park up their unsold cars, whilst recounting their unemployed. Let us watch as Hungary and Poland become ostracized by the Commission for their disobedience, and covertly and slowly cause more problems for their friends. Best of all now, we will see just what kind of a union this really is, if that is, we didn't already know. Thank you very much for watching, and please subscribe.